Alright guys, this is a long play and review for Raid on the Amstrad CPC, released by US Gold in 1985 and also released by Amsoft on their Gold label too, and later was re-released on budget on the Americana label, which was the original budget label from US Gold before Kix was created. Anyway, this was a very controversial title at the time, especially the name. Originally called Raid Over Moscow on the Commodore 64, released by an American company called Access Software in 1984. It was Access who later changed the name to Raid, and US Gold, the European distributor, had to do the same, but to confirm, US Gold did release it originally with the full title, as we can see from this box art for the C64 release. It did cause the CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, at the time to picket and protest outside the US Gold offices after the Specky release. But typically, US Gold were not fazed by this and instead predictably thought it was brilliant PR. And in the game, the names were changed from Moscow to Landas and stuff, although in the manual, even after the name change, and even in the budget re-release, it still refers to the Soviets and Moscow. And I guess they can't change the world map in game either. So let's get this started up on the Amstrad. So only ever released as Raid, and Raid with 3 exclamation marks at the end there. And a nice enough loading screen and a pretty basic title screen here, no music, but there wasn't any music in game on any of the other versions anyway. Coding by Ocean Software Limited in association with Choice. Yes, like in the early days, US Gold often asked Ocean Software, who owned a big stake in US Gold, to handle programming duties, which they in turn handed to Choice Software. And that was a bit like Beachhead and other games of that era. So we're going to play on the hard level. We get a little high score table there. I think we need to select that again. Yeah. So we're going to do this long play on the hard level, and we start off on the world map here. It tells us an enemy launched nuclear missiles against us, and we start in the hangar. And basically we've got to get all our planes out of the hangar, which is quite difficult to do. As you can see, you've sort of got XYZ coordinates there of your plane, and you've got to get it just right and get it out the hangar doors. You pull down to open the hangar doors, but they only stay open for a short amount of time, so make sure you're heading there. So just take things very slowly here to get yourself lined up. Very tricky initially to get the hang of, but after a bit of practice, you too can get all the planes out the hangar like I am here. So we're trying to do this without losing any of our planes and commandos or whatever, so at the end of the game we have a full complement of planes for a true long play. But yes guys, this basically is broken into several stages and multi-levels, and I think there's like kind of 7 different ones in total. Stage 1 is here, where we get your planes out of the hangar without crashing. Stage 2, which we'll see very shortly, we'll go back to the world map, which really isn't kind of much of a game. You just guide your planes to the missile launch site. Number 3, we have a side on horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, which you just have to get to the end of. You don't need to destroy anything specific. Stage 4 is destroy the 3 missile silos in a kind of into the screen shoot 'em up. And then you repeat that 2 more times, so 3 in total. So here we are on the world map, and all you're going to do is just guide your dot down to the launch site there, highlighted in white, and you might be able to see there's like missiles flying across the screen at the moment. It's hard to spot there, sort of a flashing white line just above Iceland or something. And here we are on the 3rd section I described. Basically kind of like a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up. You have altitude you can adjust, avoid the missiles, shoot things and bases on the floor there, shoot the tanks, etc. But you don't actually have to destroy anything here, you just have to get to the end of the level. And because I'm playing cautiously, I'm not risking trying to blow up buildings and stuff, but you can do. Sadly though, some slightly jerky scrolling here. but it's perfectly playable. Nowhere near as smooth as the Commodore 64 original, of course. So, as I was describing all the different sections, so at the end of this we have the missile silos we have to blow up, and then we repeat all what we've just done 2 more times, so 3 times in totals, and then basically section 5 is a side-on shoot-em-up when you reach the enemy base, and you just blow up the defences, and then you go inside the defence systems of the base. We'll talk about that when we come to it. So 7 sections really in total. So basically here, guys, it's all about your altitude. When you get the right altitude to destroy the silo, the ship will turn pink. Just got to avoid it. There you go. You saw it there, Flash. Got to just avoid this enemy fighter. There we go. Spawned on the right. That gives us plenty of time to line up. There you go. It's on pink. Oh, not quite centre of it. There we go. Destroy it. To line up horizontally, and when you've lined up vertically, you'll get the pink on your ship there. There we go. Brilliant. Krondin launch site has been destroyed. I doubt Krondin is a real place in Russia or anything like that. Certainly on the Amstrad version, a lot of the names have been changed. Back to the world map, and then which detects that more missiles have been launched. So this is the 2nd time round of this loop. We've got to do it another 3rd time, and then we move on to sections 5, 6 and 7 really. Section 5 essentially is another side-on scrolling shoot 'em up, just like the one we saw in sort of section 3 as I called it, sorry. But the final section, once you've destroyed all the defence systems on the enemy base, the main enemy base, you go inside the base and the nuclear reactor chamber, and you've got to destroy all the maintenance robots injecting coolant into the nuclear cells there with your commando, bouncing discs off a wall. Wait and see, guys, wait and see. Destroy all the robots, the base blows up with the reactor reaching critical mass, and the game is won, and we get a little ending sequence. So yes, guys, worth watching to the end, because there is a small ending sequence. Sound effects are okay here. Graphics are okay. It's hard to tell if this is mode 0 or mode 1, really. It kind of looks like mode 0, but only done with 4 colours. To me, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. And the graphics are rather sort of basic and minimal throughout, but it does the job. And I guess it would have been quite a big programming job with all these different sections to get right. Ooh, bit of graphical distortion there on the HUD at the bottom there, if you notice that. One more plane to get out here. Back to the world map, and we're moving our white dot there all the way across the right, and as you can see there, the white line is now above the ocean in the almost left centre of the map. So you've got to be very, very quick, and you can see the time to impact is 2 minutes 36 now, and we've got to do another whole loop. So the time limit is really tight on the hard setting of this game. So no time for messing about, really. Now this section could have been the most fun section in the game. It's not really though. It's not that much fun. We do like side-on scrolling shoot 'em ups like R-Type and things like that. This is all very basic, really. And you can shoot those blue missiles out the sky if you want to, if you're very, very, very careful. I just tend to sort of move away from them and adjust my altitude at the same time to make sure I avoid them. Yikes, ducked there. It's just a shame that the scrolling's a little bit jerky, really. It's not the worst I've seen, but it just sort of jerk a bit, really. That's a bit of a shame. Time to impact 1 minute 30, so yeah, got to get a shift on. Unfortunately you can't control the speed here, but the speed but you can control the speed of how quickly you destroy these missile silos. The clock is still ticking down, and I'm going to leave it very, very close here. There isn't really any backstory to the game I can really give you. There's no story behind the game apart from like the Soviets are basically launching nuclear missile attacks against the US. Go and sort it out, basically. Andromeda launch site has been destroyed. There we go. And now we're on our third loop. There, missile detected there, being launched from that site. So then we're going to destroy that site, and then we're on to the final big enemy base. Let's talk about the other versions quickly then, because we've seen this a couple of times now. Specky version plays fine, but with way more sort of basic graphics and sound effects, and in some section it plays a little slower. Overall though, kind of just feels very basic compared to the other versions, but still completely fine. It's still a good game. If you think the Amstrad version is a good game or the Commodore 64 version is a good game, then you're going to be more than happy with what you got on the Specky. It still has references to Moscow and the Soviets. The Amstrad version had that completely removed, as we see here. No mention of Moscow coming up. Now the Commodore 64 version, the original and arguably the best. I have to say the sound effects are pretty awesome, especially the takeoff noise of the planes, like in the hangar. It sounds as close to a real, like, sort of Harrier jump jet taking off as you're going to get on a computer. It's very, very impressive sound effects. Well done, the SID chip as always. Plays slightly smoother than the CPC version, especially the scrolling sections. And there is some extra stuff, like when you shoot bad guys off the wall in Moscow, which we'll see soon, they can actually fall to their death and splat on the floor. In the Amstrad version, they just kind of disappear. And we'll be talking about the men on the walls very shortly, because that's a bit of a problem on the Amstrad one. All three versions have the same ending, and I've not looked at the Atari 8-bit version, which I believe is very similar to the C64 one, but with not quite as nice graphics. I've not looked at the Apple II or the BBC Micro versions. I remember seeing the BBC Micro version. I remember it being extremely tough and hard to play. I think it was quite similar to the Amstrad version, but with less colourful graphics. But I may be wrong. It's worth pointing out that the Amstrad got its own bespoke version, which is cool. It's not a Specky port, and you know, there was a team dedicated to making the Amstrad version, which I think came out after the Specky one. And to be honest, the Amstrad version seems to be the most faithful one to the Commodore 64 original. You know, that the Specky one made slight changes. So how does this play in terms of controls and stuff? The controls are perfectly fine in terms of responsiveness. Yeah, your plane does sort of move quite slowly in terms of how it moves horizontally and vertically, but I think it was fairly similar in the Commodore version as well, so no real control lag, although we're going to have a little bit of trouble with the controls outside the enemy base very shortly. So this is the last set of missile silos to destroy, and the launch site, yak! Oh yes, as for review scores at the time, Amstrad Action magazine, the main magazine for anything Amstrad at the time. There was loads of magazines, but let's face it, Amstrad Action was the one you wanted to read. Reviewed the game in issue 2, awarding it a very high 89%. Yikes. Okay, so we don't even go back to the world map here, we go straight into the horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up section, and we just need to fly to the final and main enemy base here, which in the original versions was Moscow. In the Amstrad version, it is Defence Centre Landas. Why they chose the name Landas, I do not know where that comes from. And as you can see, guys, I'm not bothering trying to shoot buildings and stuff. I might blow up the occasional tank here. I'm not doing... Oh, I hit the missile there, but it didn't explode. Interesting. Normally does. Yeah, I'm not doing this for a score, high score, or anything like that. We want to beat the game. The game is tough enough as it is at this level of difficulty. There we go. I think we reached the end there. And here we go. Shandorian Defence Centre Landas. So this is no longer Moscow. This is Landas or Shandoria. I don't know. So it's Russia's Shandoria? I don't know. Anyway, destroy all the things on the building here. Once you've destroyed all the items on the screen, you can move on to the next level. So you can move your commando at the bottom there, left and right, horizontally of course, but pushing up and down controls the angle, the vertical angle of your bullet, or is it a grenade, or is it a rocket launcher? I'm not quite sure. So it's, make sure you destroy everything here on the base that you can possibly destroy. Some things are kind of hard to spot that you might need to destroy. And oh yeah, got the tank there. And basically, guys, to move on to the next section, you have to clear everything on the screen. Watch that. You can yeah, that can kill the tank there. One bullet will, or one grenade will kill the tank anyway. Yeah, more things to destroy there on the defence centre. And now we can move on to my most hated part of the game, just killing the guys on the wall here. Now, you have to be very, very, very quick here, and it's very hard to get the vertical height of your gun spot on. And I have to work out, it's probably push down once there, push down twice here for this guy. You've got to be exactly lined up horizontally as well. Sometimes you have to be to the left of the guy, sometimes to the right. The problem is, guys, in this section, is they respawn very quickly, and I realise I took too much time there, so I'm waiting for them to respawn. Because it's so frustrating. You clear the whole right hand side of the defence centre of bad guys, you move over to the left, and as you just get rid of them, they start respawning on the right again. It's a nightmare. And I'll be honest with you guys, this is probably the only part of the game where I've used a snapshot reload, because this can go on for ages and ages and ages. I'm not quite right there. See that? Look, it's already respawning on the right there. I was just too slow. You've literally got to be almost perfect with every shot on this Amstrad version, which is incredibly frustrating. So I go all the way over and start again. I hate this bit. I hate it so much. Why do they need to respawn? I call this kind of like artificial difficulty, you know. I want to make this section, you know, a tough one to beat, and instead of like doing something clever, they frustrate you with like really quickly respawning enemies. Oh god, look, they're starting again already. There we go. Oops. Yeah, this can go on for a long time, but we'll get it. We'll get it, guys. We'll get it. Right, I'm at the right vertical height from that guy to the far right guy, so I can just start shooting now. Move down very slightly. The problem here with the controls is the very finicky with the vertical height of the weapon. It's kind of, sometimes you have to be a very, very light touch pressing down or up here. Sometimes it can feel a bit of pot luck that you get the right vertical height. Oh god, look, he started respawning. I think you get the gist now of just how frustrating this section is. And sadly, we may have to replay this section as well after the next section. Because if you run out of discs on the next section, you have to replay this bit again and get more discs. which adds to the frustration somewhat. Can we do it? Oh, they've got a tank. Kill the tank quickly. Oh no, and they started respawning. Ah, the tank respawned, and then we've got to do this all again. I hope you're still watching, guys, and with me. God, I hate this bit. This is where the Amstrad version is going to lose a lot of marks. I'm sure the Commodore 64 version doesn't have these guys respawning as quick as that. There we go, done it. Now this essentially is the last section of the game. As mentioned earlier, we're inside the base in the nuclear reactor chamber, and that blue thing there is a maintenance robot which is injecting coolant into the nuclear reactor cells there, and your commando weirdly has to bounce discs off a wall to destroy them. Who came up with that idea? I have no idea, but hey, it's the early 80s. Destroy all the robots. The base blows up with the reactor reaching critical mass. You have a certain number of discs, and there's a certain number of robots to destroy. Now, I think on the Commodore 64 version, as long as you don't lose a disc, like bouncing off the wall and then you not catching it, I think you can destroy all the robots in one session here in this section. Sadly, on the Amstrad version, there's not enough discs to destroy all the robots that get spawned here. As you can see there, I'm doing very well. It takes several hits of a disc to kill them though, sadly. I've only got 4 discs left, and I think there's 5 maintenance robots in total, and each one moves faster than the other. I guess because they know the nuclear reactor needs coolant putting in. I missed, but I catch the disc. I don't lose the disc, but yeah, we're not going to have enough on the Amstrad version, which is a further annoyance because we've done it pretty much perfectly here. But the game is going to force us to go back to that horrible section outside the defence centre and clear the bad guys again, and we get more discs. There we go. We've only got 1 disc left, and this takes several hits to kill. So, oops. Because they're moving a lot faster, you have to sort of predict a lot quicker where they're going to be. Yeah, he's not sticking around long there. And also, those maintenance robots, they also shoot bullets and discs at us, which is rather unfair of them. But you notice now it's on the last robot, there's a countdown that has started, something like ECT. Not quite sure what ECT stands for, but there's 1 minute, 22 seconds to destroy these robots. We run out of discs though, and we're back to this section again. Yikes. So guys, I'm going to sum up a review and score here on this section, considering we're replaying it. You know, this is one of the earliest games on 8-bit home computers. Thankfully, post sort of Beachhead from Access Software and US Gold, and things have improved a bit since that game, the Beachhead game. But it's still pretty basic. But I like the fact that we have multiple levels of different gameplay styles. Yes, the gameplay styles in each of those levels are rather basic, maybe. Apart from the hangar section, that's pretty cool how they've done that with the having to get the planes take off and get out the hangar and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's kind of fun. I think maybe stick to the easy level or something like that if you're playing just for a quick blast and a bit of fun. The hard section is very, very frustrating, and it didn't need to be as frustrating as it ends up being. For example, on this section specifically. So yeah, Amstrad Action, they gave it a very high 89%. It's not going to get a high score like that from me. Although I did have some enjoyment playing it, and I appreciate there's different types of gameplay on offer here, and it's reasonably well presented throughout, as are the graphics fairly reasonable, sound effects pretty reasonable. So yeah, overall I think I would give this a 7 out of 10. And that's like basically just creeping into the 70% mark if you were doing like an out of 100, like Amstrad actually used to do. But I think that's a fair score. It does have a certain amount of replay value, I suppose, but if this section is frustrating you, it's going to put you off coming back to the game. So I suppose you could go after a higher score and destroy more things on the floor in the horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up section. I avoided doing that most of the time. Here we go. So finally back in there. Well, the timer has reset, interestingly enough. Ooh, just missed. So this one's going to be quite tough to hit because it's moving a lot quicker, as mentioned earlier. It bounces off the robot if you don't get it right. So we're going to throw now, well before it's even thinking about going to the last one there. And we screwed it up. So yeah, your target's there against the back wall. Obviously, you would have noticed that by now. And missed a disc there. It doesn't matter, we've got plenty of discs left. I'm not sure why I threw that one there. I think I'm just testing getting the timing right. But watch out for the timer counting down. 1 minute remaining now, pretty much. I think this is going to be a hit. There we go. And our little commando jumps for joy there, which is a nice touch. "50 seconds left. Tension is mounting. Go. Might just. There you go. Will this reach the bottom in time to hit him? There we go. I think maybe one more hit on this robot, and he's a goner. I'm sure this is the last robot. Yeah. We've got 24. God, 23 seconds. Can I do it? I think I was too early there. Maybe too late. No, we got it. The commando gets the hell out of there. And there's the ending sequence. Short but brief, but decent enough. Reporting heavy air fighting today. Federation attack force destroyed Shandor Defence Centre Landas. And 9 pilots returned. That's all the pilots. So we did the long play. We did it. We beat it at last. And we did it without losing a life, and all our pilots returned. There we go. End game, essentially, guys. So if you enjoyed this one, maybe you want to check out like the earlier games from Access Software, like Beachhead, but I wouldn't bother with Beachhead 2 on the Amstrad because that is crap, in my opinion. And won't be getting a long play and review treatment because it's one section is pretty much impossible to beat. There we go, high score table. And that's your lot. So guys, yeah, 7 out of 10 from me. It's perhaps not aged well, and the controversy at the time seems a little bit daft. I mean, it famously caused controversy in the Finnish parliament, even being raised and discussed there, causing a political crisis at the time. Oh, what days they were back then. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. More long playing reviews, hopefully every Monday, and live streams every Friday. Zypho, out.
So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click a like below, leave a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't already. And over that way, there's another video for you to check out. Zypho, out.